Thank you so much, Nivedita, for granting this opportunity to share how background in basic sciences can actually help in gaining more understanding of clinical research and ultimately public health. So, as Nivedita mentioned, I graduated in zoology and I post-graduated in human biology, which is nothing but biological anthropology. And immediately after completing my, or actually just before submission of my doctoral thesis, I joined PHFI and I'm working in the area of genetic epidemiology and trying to contribute to public health since 2010. So today I'm going to talk about how basic science knowledge can complement clinical research and how basic sciences fit into clinical research and ultimately public health domain. So now I'm very thankful to our previous two speakers who have very well discussed what is clinical research, what are the different methods that study designs that are involved in clinical research, and ultimately how that benefits public health on whole. Now, just a reminder from our previous speakers. So now we do agree that clinical research is nothing but understanding health and diseases in detail. And that can be done by studying people, human beings, human participants, and not just human participants. By that, we actually mean is that by studying data coming from human participants or just biological samples coming from human participants or both of them together. And what does clinical research do? How does it then finally leads to public health domain is? It helps us understand the diseases. It improves our knowledge of what this disease, what a particular disease is, what causes that disease, what are the risk factors, how it is distributed in a population. And not just that, but it also includes other domains, which are like what are the ways to detect a disease, what are the diagnostic tests, available, and there's a difference, clear difference between screening and diagnostic test, which is altogether a different domain. And then finally, how to treat that disease in clinical settings or how to manage that disease at a population level. And finally, how to prevent that disease in an individual or at a population at a whole. Now, achieving all these different components under the domain of clinical research, you actually need researchers coming from different fields. And in this slide, I have tried to put in different components of clinical research, which on the left-hand side are going towards the specific domains of research. And this helps us understand why clinical research is and should be multidisciplinary to achieve all the different components of its of the different components of clinical research to be able to achieve public health goals on a whole. For example, if you want to study the biological mechanisms, how a disease develops in a body, or you want to develop the drugs, or you want to understand how a particular drug responds in an individual. So all these areas come under the domain of basic sciences, the basic bench work, as Professor Zotwe rightly mentioned. We also call basic science as bench work or laboratory works. On the other hand, if you want to understand the pattern of disease, the various risk factors at a population level, although that work goes under the domain of epidemiology. And I have included biostatistics under epidemiology because you can't understand data and can't interpret your results unless you have the basic knowledge of biostatistics. They both go hand in hand. Now, similarly, for any disease, not just the physical factors or not just the genetic factors, but also the social factors play a huge role, a huge, huge role. And it is the interaction between the physical and social interaction factors, the behavioral mechanisms that are playing at population level, which ultimately result in a specific pattern of a disease. And therefore, studying both physical and social factors, I would say, come under the domain of epidemiology. Now, similarly, in order to manage the disease at a population level, at a community level, you need to have understanding of a health system approach. And that is altogether a different domain of research then, which is called health system research. Now, apart from drugs, apart from diagnostics, you also have in area of medical devices, which are also very crucial for treatment and management of a disease. And for that area, you need to have a background in engineering probably and not basic science or epidemiology for that matter. And this area of research is known as health technology assessment or health technology research. And ultimately, for all your interventions, be it a medical device or a behavioral intervention or drug intervention, you need to evaluate it economically. And that falls under the area of health economics. Now, all these areas were touched upon by Professor Zotwe also, and our previous speaker is Dr. Sanjay Gandhi also. And we need to understand, in order to achieve the different components of clinical research, you need to have research happening in the different domains to be able to achieve our goals and manage and treat our diseases finally. Now, taking the example of COVID pandemic, which has changed and impacted the life of everyone on earth today, even to address COVID pandemic at a global scale or even at a region, a specific region or at a country level, you need to conduct research in all these domains to be able to address the pandemic. And I'll be spending a very brief time taking you through the different domains by taking the example of COVID alone. Now, basic sciences. Now, when this COVID infection came into the picture, people were basically trying to understand what is this virus? How did it originate? What does it does in our body which causes infection? And now ultimately we have the issues of new variants coming up. So all this area comes under the domain of basic sciences, basically virology in this particular case, because corona is a virus. And similarly, what are the different tests that are required to detect this virus in our body? And with variants, now the new mutations are coming up, which cannot be detected by a single test. There are different, now we do know, and it is well established now that the different variants cannot be picked up in one go in RT-PCR, and therefore CT scans are much more helpful. Now, that's a diagnostic test, but in the order to have a cost-effective screening test at a larger scale in populations, you need to have a reasonable screening test as well, which is a swab test. So, and then the economic evaluations of these tests, these markers, comes under the domain of then again health economics. Similarly, development of drugs, development of vaccines, their evaluations through clinical trials and their economic evaluations, all this also is happening simultaneously, which falls into different domains then. Apart from basic science knowledge of coronavirus, we also need to understand the epidemiological burden of this infection. We need to understand what's the pattern of this disease in different populations, and also the various risk factors that increase your risk of having major symptoms or lethal symptoms, and what are the different vulnerable populations which are more susceptible to develop this disease or can die after developing a disease. So all this area of research comes under the umbrella of epidemiology then. Now, all the online dashboards that you visit for your incidences, for the new cases coming up, or for the different graphs that you see when you compare your country with other countries, or things like that, or when you compare what are the different risk factors that play a major role in this infection, all that area, all that research is happening under the umbrella of epidemiology then, and not basic sciences. Moving on, all the behavioral factors that play a major role in management of COVID pandemic, or that plays a major role in level, they all come under the thematic area of social sciences then. We all know use of mask is important, and Professor Zotwe also was mentioning that, but still people are hesitant or are not using it properly. And similarly, like mask, there's also a problem with social distancing, specifically in India because of the sensitive emotional beliefs, the religious beliefs, things like not going to funerals is very disturbing for certain people, or avoiding religious gatherings or avoiding religious practices during this lockdown period is very, very sensitive to Indian population, and that plays a huge role in stopping the transmission to population level. So And finally, in case of health system preparedness, to be able to do screening at a mass level, to be able to do testing at an effective rate and efficiently, and similarly handling the hospitalizations, how prepared are we? How prepared is our health system? All that area, all that factors come if you have researchers coming from health system area. And finally, to be able to implement vaccinations effectively, efficiently at a population level, we all know now there is a crisis that there's a shortage of vaccines, specifically for second dose. When government did know that people will be coming back for their second doses, and there are issues coming up with that. So all this area comes under the health system research then. So not just the area of basic sciences or core epidemiology will help unless you have a balanced research and balanced efficacy in the different domains to be able to control COVID pandemic, I would say. Now, in terms of basic sciences, so as I told you that I come from the background of basic science, zoology, and then biological anthropology. I would like to take an example of a genetic variant. And so there would be many people among our participants today who are graduates in life sciences, basic sciences. And why should they take up masters in clinical research? I'll try to answer that in a couple of slides. Now, this particular slide tells us what is the principle of molecular biology that's happening in our body. So our DNA, so the information that is contained in our DNA, that regulates what protein is to be formed, right? And that happens in two stages, which is transcription and translation. And if anything goes wrong in your DNA sequence, if you have mutations, if you have variation in your genome, in your DNA sequence, a different sort of protein is formed that may lead to a disease. So that's the basic, I would say, a layman reason how genetics leads to a disease. Now, what happens is, so this is that slide again, that the different types of mutations, which can be a single nucleotide polymorphism or a deletion or an insertion. So all these different sorts of mutations ultimately lead to different protein that is produced, which can, not definitely, which can lead to a disease. But then the problem is, if you have two people with a same mutation, so over here, I have taken example of FTO gene, which is well associated with obesity. So if you have the same mutation A instead of G, but still one person is fat and one is thin. And that's the basic question which a layman keeps asking his or her clinician. A patient keeps on asking, if I have this particular mutation, what is my chance of developing that disease? Now, the answer to this question is, it's not one gene that's causing that disease. So all the non-communicable diseases, which are multifactorial, and that's why they are called complex diseases, they are all not caused by just single gene, but rather multiple genes. And in a gene, there are hundreds of mutations in a gene. So it's the interaction between those mutations, interaction between the gene, which is also termed as gene-gene interaction, that finally leads to a specific form of a disease or a trait. Now, on top of it, so take the example of lung cancer. So there are certain genes that play a role in lung cancer development. But on top of it, there are lots of environmental factors and lifestyle factors. For example, smoking is the biggest risk factor for lung cancer, or environmental pollution, the air pollution that you're exposed to can cause lung cancer. So that, along with the genetic makeup of an individual, determines the development of a disease. And this interaction is known as gene-environment interaction. So if you know that I have a particular gene mutation, and plus I follow a certain lifestyle, and this is my environmental exposure, and the interaction of all these factors finally determines what's your risk of developing a disease. Okay. And all the science behind the gene environment interaction comes under the umbrella of genetic epidemiology. Now, so if you have a gene, if you have a specific form of a gene, if you have a specific mutation, what can you do then? How does it ultimately help you in clinical research or public health? And the answer I have tried to put to that question is in this slide. So basically, all these studying these genetic variants gives us the basic understanding of how a disease is formed in an individual. How? So these genes determine certain biological pathways, and the variations in these are then finally altering those biological mechanisms, the biological pathways leading to the disease. Okay, so it helps us in basic understanding, which then helps in formulating interventions, which are basically under the field of pharmacogenomics. So if you know the function of a gene, then you try to develop drugs or medicines which can respond to that particular biological mechanism. Okay. Then, secondly, if you know a genetic makeup of an individual, you can identify people who are at a higher risk of developing a disease. The greatest example is of now from the breast cancer. So we all know BRCA1 gene is the most crucial genetic variant that is associated with breast cancer. So now imagine in an oncology department, a woman comes in and say that her mother had breast cancer, her maternal aunt had breast cancer, and her elder sister just recently developed breast cancer. So then the clinician prescribes, apart from other routine tests, they also prescribes to undergo genotyping for BRCA1 mutation. And now if a patient comes back and say that I have this specific mutation, then what are my chances of developing that breast cancer is? That is what we do under the field of genetic epidemiology. So when you know that a person is carrying a specific mutation, is at a higher risk, you then counsel the patient, which leads to the field of genetic counseling. And apart from just leading to genetic counseling, wherein you counsel the individuals not to follow certain lifestyle, to take care of not exposing themselves to certain environmental behaviors. Also, there is another field which is personalized medicine, which takes us to the field of pharmacogenomics. What is pharmacogenomics? So it's the how a specific genetic makeup responds to a drug. So think of examples where people say that this drug doesn't suit me, or I have severe side effects to this drug. And similarly, there are people who don't respond to a specific drug while others do. So all that comes under the area of pharmacogenomics. So here are some of the categories of drugs, which, and on the last column, I have specified their effectiveness, by which it means, for example, ACE inhibitors, which are drugs given to the hypertensive people, have 10 to 30% effectiveness, which means only 10 to 30% people have effective response to this particular drug. And similarly, we have a range of effectiveness for different categories of drugs that are used for different diseases. And on top of all this, we do have the other things like side effects. So what I basically mean to say is people respond differently to a same drug, which can be explained by the genetic makeup of that individual. So what I would say is, if you have basic science background, so you already know what's happening in the body, how the different biological mechanisms are leading to a certain type of trait or a disease, and what are the genetic variants responsible for that. And apart from genetic variants, what are the epigenetic mechanisms that lead to that disease? Basically, that knowledge has no sense if you can translate that to clinical settings and then finally to the public health settings at population level. So implicating your basic knowledge in finally treating and managing diseases is what will happen only if you have the knowledge of clinical research. Similarly, if you want to relate your biological mechanisms and your genetic mutations with the diseases, you need to have understanding of epidemiological concepts. You need to have understanding of how to design trials, how to design trials for any sort of intervention, which can be drug or medical device or any behavioral intervention also. But if you just want to relate your genetic risk factors or your biological mechanisms with your outcome, which is a disease or a trait, then you need to have understandings of observational studies, which are not intervention studies. So all these things, simple things like association or causation, you'll come to understand about all these things only if you have a knowledge of basic knowledge of research methodology, which is taught under the epidemiological concepts. Similarly, what are these different study designs that can be followed to answer a specific research question? What is research, first of all, and then how to frame a research question, and how to design your studies in specific ways to answer that research question. And finally, how to collect data, how to analyze data comes under the field of biostatistics. And finally, how to relate your biological mechanisms or your genetic variants with your diseases comes under the area of genetic epidemiology. So what I mean to say is, having basic science knowledge is one thing, but then how to relate that to clinical outcomes at a population level in public health sciences is what you can achieve only after undergoing certain basics of clinical research. And that, believe me, is wonderful. So because that gives us satisfaction to a basic scientist also, that I have achieved something finally at a population level or at a common man level, I would say. With this, I would thank you all for listening, and I'm happy to address any questions. Thank you.